These are some of the things that I think are important when it comes to creating a healthy fish pond. G'day, my name is Kev. The aim of my channel is to help people build and maintain ponds without spending a fortune. If that sounds like something that interests you, feel free to subscribe, and you might like to visit my website, ozponds.com. The average backyard fish pond is a closed-loop system. That means that anything that's dropped, discarded, or secreted into the pond stays in the pond. So it's important that we don't allow unwanted pollutants into the pond. We want to have good filtration, we want to have plenty of oxygen, sensible fish numbers, and a diverse environment. These are the 5 things I want to talk about today. If we achieve these things, we will not only have a healthy pond, but it should also be a cinch to maintain. So one of the best ways to ensure your pond doesn't get unwanted pollutants is to build it so that runoff can't enter the pond. Runoff is rich in sediments, organic materials, not to mention potential pollutants like pesticides. So it's best to design your fish pond so that none or very little runoff enters the pond. It's also handy if you can prevent excess organic material like dead plants and leaves decomposing inside the pond. As these break down, they can release nutrients that can potentially feed algae blooms, and they'll lead to an excessive buildup of sediment. Nutrients and sediment building up inside the pond lead to more plant growth, which further feeds the problem. This process is called eutrophication. One of my favourite ways to help remove organic materials is adding an intake bay or skimmer. These are easy to build yourself and can even be added onto an existing pond. I'll link a video in the description that talks about them and how to build them. You can also add nets to capture leaves and debris, or net the pond as needed, but the more organics you prevent decaying inside the pond, the better. Next is having good filtration. Fish and all the things that break down inside the pond release ammonia into the water. Bacteria are needed to process the ammonia. These bacteria live on all wet surfaces inside the pond, and they occur naturally. But often just the bacteria colony in the pond itself isn't enough, and you need a biological filter. It's called a biological filter because it's a living filter. The main job of this filter is to grow bacteria. There's many different ways to build a biological filter. My favourite's a bog filter. I have videos showing the different ones I've built for my ponds, and I'll link those in the description as well. If you don't want to build your own biological filter, there are plenty available to buy straight off the shelf. All you need to do is pump water through them. Now, to work their magic, these bacteria need oxygen, not to mention the fish and any other life forms inside the pond. So it's important that the water in the pond has plenty of dissolved oxygen. The way to get oxygen into the water is to have air and the water interact. Adding aeration devices, fountains, streams and waterfalls are all great ways to get plenty of oxygen into the water. The next thing is to avoid overstocking your pond. The more fish you have, the more bacteria you'll need to convert ammonia and help break down all of their waste. There are lots of online guides on how many fish you can have in however many litres or gallons, but I prefer to just use common sense. I like to stock my ponds at a rate that I know the fish can fend for themselves. I start with a low number. If there's plenty of food, they'll breed. If there isn't enough to go round, the fish will eat their fry and eggs. And that brings me to my last point, which is creating a well-balanced ecosystem. I like to add rock, pebble, logs and plants to my ponds. I like to incorporate streams and bog filters, which replicate the way nature filters water. I encourage the growth of diatoms and photoplanktons, which feed baby fish, which feed bigger fish. I believe that having natural food is so much better than processed food. My ponds aren't sterile environments that are overly clean. With that said, I will still remove the buildup of sediments from time to time just to keep everything in balance. So those are my keys to a healthy and low maintenance fish pond. I have other videos where I talk about each aspect in more detail if you want to check them out. And there are of course people that like to monitor their pH, KH and do constant water changes, and that's fine, but it's just not for me. I will stick with my complete ecosystem approach. If you want to see how I built any of my ponds and filters, they're all available by scrolling through the previous uploads. Just one other thing before I go. If you do live in a desert or a very low rainfall area, in your pond it might be necessary to do a few water changes throughout the year. It's not only sediments that build up inside the pond, but compounds within the water itself. These compounds won't dissipate through evaporation, so removing some old water and replacing with new water certainly won't hurt. Anyway, I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, you can give the thumbs up a little tickle, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.